Yeah, go ahead.
I think you said this elsewhere on your slides, but it's worth adding to this list, operating systems.
I'm sorry?
I think it's
Operating
worth adding to
systems,
this
yes,
list.
right, yeah, good point. Yeah, yeah, we certainly saw that from Mendel and from Michael as well. That the safe foundation or the secure foundation, you know, can happen at different points in the stack, and yeah, the argument is it ought to happen lower, I guess. And then the last point there on this chart is type safe languages and runtimes are mainstream. And you know, I think we're seeing that exhibited by projects like Parrot and Python and others where, you know, guys are just trying to solve their problems, right? And they're coming up with a lot of the same answers that have been, you know, formulated over the years. And what does this mean to me? It means that there's a broadening community that's interested in this programming style. Good, you know, but there's a broadening need for virtual machine technology, and you know, we've got lots and lots of people going out and inventing it. That's good too, except, you know, if you're a customer, what you end up with is you have, you know, a variable set of qualities of service from different implementations of different languages. Good for research, not so good when you get a mixed bag as a customer. It kind of works, you know, or maybe it'll work next year kind of thing. But, you know, we need to do what we can as a community. When I say a community, I mean the academic community, the companies represented here, the open source community, to kind of walk that line where we want people to innovate, we want people to be creative, but we also got to keep our eye on the customer, you know. And what that means is let's share resources, let's do what we can to get quality to the customer, you know, any way we can, because all of us have customers. So that's really my point there, and it is a fine line to walk. You know, it's not. Innovation is something where you need a fair degree of independence in order to pull it off, right? And that's well acknowledged. So I don't have an answer to that problem, but I think that's one of the symptoms, as if I put myself in the customer's shoes, that I'm seeing here. And the other point is, you know, because they're mainstream, the rubber's hitting the road on this stuff on small devices and on large servers, right? And we're seeing a lot of pain from that. And it's one thing to talk about it in theory, it's another thing to drop it into a massive database system or drop it onto a large enterprise system or try to squeeze it into a mobile phone. And so we're seeing all those pains as well because it's becoming mainstream. It's all good, but it means there's real challenges, and the problem is the challenges at our front door. You know, customers saying, hey, it's not working, guys. So that was my set of themes, and I'm sure there's stuff I missed. So I left a chart here for stuff I missed. Vikram brought up operating systems, so that's one. The purpose of the themes was sort of twofold. One is to kind of get you to reflect on what we've talked about, and in the context that I tried to set on the first day, which is, you know, we've got real customer problems here that we need to solve. But the other purpose is to obviously think about whether there's a research roadmap and a practitioner's roadmap here going forward from the workshops. So, wide open for discussion.
I think one thing I think would be interesting to pursue is, you know, to what extent, you know, there's an opportunity to do kind of on a meta level or virtual machine kinds of things.
Right.
So that, you know, various kinds, you know, there are all these different constituencies here doing things, and you know, if there's, you know, to what extent can there be shared infrastructure?
Yeah, exactly. I thought about that quite a bit, and to be honest, I need to learn a lot more about Ian's work, because I think that it holds out some promise for that. That although, to be fair, I've seen my share of compilers and other things in the past, and I'm not, you know, it's not a lock that will be an actually effective solution. But you know, you're right. You know, to the extent that we can have a framework that allows innovation and sharing of the underlying infrastructure at the same time, that's the dream. So yeah, if we could do that, would be great.
So one theme that was definitely discussed was this interoperability of different VMs, and I found it interesting how it came up in different contexts. People talk about unified VM, federated VM, how do you get Java, Python, Perl, CLR working together. And I mean, it's not clear that you want to tell the community, okay, everyone build one infrastructure for all of the above, but we need to get a better understanding of how to do this stuff. There'll be new languages that will emerge in the future, new kinds of execution environments that haven't been designed as yet. So what I'm wondering is, can we think of some kind of, targets for the community to shoot at? Demonstrate Python and Java / CLR and Perl working together in this interesting way. Things that can put pressure on the on pushing the envelope or in terms of where we want to go. Demonstration of UI and server, demonstration of something on a small device, and then that could maybe get people thinking, just like as to how to get those scenarios together. I mean, to me, identifying the scenarios would be a first step towards identifying the common infrastructure.
Oh, sure, which actually jump ahead of everyone who's got
Yes.
their hands up. And this is something that I was thinking about as it was coming up, because it's something that we deal with, because one of the things, certainly in the scripting language community, is we assume that we're working with someone else, because that's just life for us. And one thing that would make it easier when talking across VMs is be able to take some of the lower level semantics and have just a standard way to express them, basically at the C level, such that if I am writing a Perl, if I'm working on the Perl interpreter, I know how to expose, how do you make a method call into me? How do you make a subroutine call into me? And if something goes wrong, how do I propagate an exception outwards? Because even if you go from VM to VM, if you start off in the JVM and you make a call that ultimately calls into the CLR, that ultimately calls into, like the Python or Perl interpreter, and way down at the low level we throw an exception, you really want it to propagate up until someone catches it. Right now, those stop at the boundary. There's no way to propagate them up. It might be worth sitting down and just basically defining, as much as I hate to say it, API standards or standard, even if they're suboptimal semantics that could be shared.
So that, I'll go to Mark in a minute, but I think the one comment I'll make is I think that's the kind of things that we would find if we define the right use cases. So if Vivek was saying, clearly one of the use cases you're pointing out is exception handling. Who knows what other use cases
yeah,
we have in
absolutely.
terms of rich object-oriented interfaces and so on. And so I think that sitting down and kind of nailing the use cases that are genuinely interesting over and above the existing interoperability capabilities like IDL and so on.
Sure.
Then that's an important first step, and it'll lead you to say, "Oh God, that's broken."
Exactly.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Mark.
Yeah, I think that what we need to do is enumerate at least the current set of pain points. But I think that we can come at this from two angles. One is, what is it hard to express in Java about getting to Perl or the like? And so what are the problems for our users? But there's also the implementation problems that we have. So somebody was talking about a garbage collector, which just didn't strike me as industrial strength, but was in some scripting language because that's what they implemented first. And I think that what we could do is I think that there's something exciting